Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the LitRPG Podcast. I'm Ramon Mejia. I'm here to bring you the latest LitRPG news, reviews, and of course author interviews. Episode number 209 of the show for this week. And I got six new reviews for you folks at home. That's going to include a world called Memory, also Gnosis, book 1, and then Skyclad, and after that it'll be Game World, and then we have a couple of reviews from our correspondent, Ian Mitchell. He's reviewing actually Irrelevant Jack 3 and No Mistakes, Roll of Change book number 1. So we'll get some of his viewpoints on those particular reviews as well. But before we get into any of that, of course, we're going to go into LitRPG news. And psych, no, I'm just kidding. There's no real LitRPG news, unfortunately, this week. So we're just going to skip all of that section, going into the out now, stuff that has come out now. Haven't had a chance to read it, but it is out for you to enjoy. That includes Outpost number 7, book 2 in the Dark Exchange series. This is actually a refreshed novel series. The first book was just republished recently under a new publisher. And this one is the sequel. So sequel book number 2 to that particular Dungeon Core novel is out. I enjoyed book number 1. Haven't had a chance to read book number 2, of course, because it just came out. Also out now is Succubus Dungeon by Eden Red. Remember that often the titles written into that name do have adult themes, so be aware of that. Also now is Mind's Journey, The King's Quest, and the second book in the Stellar Survival Quest series called Section Commander. So I barely enjoyed book number 1, but did get a score of a 7, so I'm probably going to pick it up and read it at some point. In new audiobooks, surprisingly enough, there are none. Since the last time we recorded, till this particular recording day, there are no new audiobooks in LitRPG, so there were a lot last week, though, so maybe that's what it is. Or there's going to be a whole bunch tomorrow. I don't know. But as of today, no new LitRPG audiobooks, unfortunately. On to upcoming LitRPG, we have on January 20th, Dungeons of Strata, Deepest Dungeon book number 1, that they finally have a release date for the ebook version. The audiobook version, oddly, out now for you to enjoy. On January 23rd, it'll be 7 days later, the second book in that particular series. January 24th, Quest for Dominion, the 4th book in the Hero Online series. The last in the Brooding Gate Online series is going to be Darkling Siege, out on January 28th, for the main series at least. January 29th, it'll be Guard, Web of Worlds, Empire, the third dungeon in the Dungeon Crafting series by Jonathan Brooks will be out on January the 30th. A lot of books are coming on the 30th and the 31st of this month, folks. It's called Crafter's Dilemma. January 31st is going to be the second book in the Endless Fantasy Online series, The Elk Kingdom. Also on the 31st, Tuscan Blade, Exodus Only, book number 1 from Lavelle Jackson. On the 31st as well, it'll be Ultima, A LitRPG Journey. The 31st as well, January, it'll be Season 1, Blood Games, book number 2. The author says that he's published by Mountain Press, so they always put out pretty good books, so I'll have to wait and see what that one turns into. On February the 4th, finally, in February, Battle Master. February the 4th also is going to be the second book in the Time Loop series called Max of the Rebellion. Also on February the 4th, it'll be Tales of the Northblood, Winter's Breath by Carrie Summers, so if you like her other series, this one might do it for you too. I enjoy that series. So I'm looking forward to giving a chance to read this one. February the 6th, it'll be Skull and Thrones. On February the 7th, it'll be Dark Academy, book number 4 in that series, in the Transformation series. The second book in the Invasion series by Vasily Mahenko, which is again set in the Barleone universe, which is the way the Shaman universe. Different main character here, though. That's called An Equation with One Unknown, out on February the 10th. Second book in the World of Karik series, out on February the 13th. The second book in the World of Change book, also by Vasily Mahenko, called Pearl of the South, will be out on February the 14th. That one just came out. First book in the series, so they must have had these things lined up ready to go. Second book in the Divine Apostasy series will be out on February the 14th. On February 29th, it'll be Gods of Ash and Amber, Seeds of Chaos, book number 4. February 29th as well, it'll be the third book in the Glory of the Formation Empire. March the 9th, The Incarnator. On March the 20th, The Dark Continent, Underdog, book number 3. March the 30th, Hero Online, book number 5, Quest for Freedom. On April the 1st, Sentenced to Troll, book number 3. There we go. Finally, you get that third book in that very popular series. On April 22nd, it'll be The Good Guys, book number 8, called Earthbound and Town. April the 15th, the 5th book in the Dragonheart series, called Sea of Sorrow. May the 1st, it'll be War Singers, the 4th book in the Alchemy Online series by James Osiris Baldwin. So, looking forward to reading that one as well. And that is all I know for the near future. I guess if you're an author and if you want to get your book on this list, just send the information to us at litrpgpodcast.com, at gmail.com, or at feedback@geekbytes.com. Plenty of places to find us and locate us, so we can have a nice organized place for readers to find and organize and schedule their reading material, because these books can be very expensive, especially as fast as some of us read them. But on to new releases and reviews. Okay, first review for the week is going to be A World Called Memory, written by M.J. Sweeney. This is the first book in the series. It is 427 pages, $4.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited, and here's the author's description. By the year is 2049. That's what it says, folks. There have been a number of significant advances in medicine, technology, trade, and social reform. The modern world has improved in many ways, but Corden just doesn't really fit in within its constraints. Getting his hands on some illicit technology, he decides to finally take the plunge, full consciousness transfer to another world, another life, and a fresh beginning. Corden has to fight for every inch of success, but he finds his new life gratifying and surprising in ways that the old one never was. Who said violence and bloodshed were never good? Under the right circumstances, it seems to be what's actually helping him to evolve and grow, and maybe even be a better person. The intense pressure of facing death perversely is keeping him alive in more ways than one. He just has to watch out for the others more violent and less scrupulous than he is. So there we go. And there's a bunch of stuff about LitRPG, but there you go. For me, this is a good slice of life story that I'd be interested from the very first pages. Like the setup into the game world is a full transfer memory upload, but it isn't supposed to be in this virtual reality game that's also partially a Portal fiction setup. So it's explained very nicely, but you also get some nice background for the character. So I thought it was a nice beginning hook there. But by the 5% mark, you're into this new Portal fiction fantasy world that also has these VR MMO kind of points to it. And I like the story. Again, very slice of life in that you're following the main character on his RPG adventures. Very nice descriptions of RPG power progressions. The actual progressions are very nicely thought out. They were interesting, and they were just kind of a fun story to read. The characters in the story are very well fleshed out, and there's some good world building that makes even the non-combat stuff interesting. So even like shopping or shopping for new gear, upgrading, or whatever he's doing in the towns, getting quests, very nice written, as interesting as the combat actiony stuff. So on the game mechanic side of things, it's nothing too outstanding here. There's plenty of crunchy numbers and descriptions and character sheets and skills and magics and all that good stuff. So if that's what you're into, you're going to find plenty of that here. But it's not so much that it takes away from the story. I like the balance here. Overall, again, nice balance between crunchy fantasy story or crunchy game mechanics and fantasy story. And I just had a nice time following the main character on his slice of life adventures. So for me, it gets a score of 7.7 out of 10. That's A World Called Memory with a score of 7.7 out of 10. And next up we have Gnosis, book number 1, The Paladin Quest, a LitRPG novel written by Aidan Collier. It is 293 pages, $3.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited, and here's the author's description. Daryl was fed up with his life. All he wanted to do is have friends play RPGs that he had created. His in-depth research took a turn when he tried to create some atmosphere. Drawn into a fantasy world that is based on his work, Daryl must survive and level up so he can leave. Will Daryl be able to navigate his new existence as a paladin and complete his quest to rid the realm of an evil army? With forces arrayed against him that neither he understands nor can combat properly, his quest may be harder than he first realizes. And it does say it's influenced by tabletop fantasies. So there we go. This is a transported RPG world story where the RPG world are based on a tabletop game, not a video game. Read some more and more of these recently, people are kind of translating their tabletop experiences either as a dungeon master or as a player into LitRPG. And so some of these are really interesting, and some of these lack some depth to the RPG side of things. And this one kind of leans towards the latter. It's still a good story. You're going to see character sheets and skill increases in the story, but one of the unfortunate drawbacks of this particular story is that there's not a lot of RPG progression. There is some, and the fact the main character does gain skills and he does quests and he's supposed to be getting experience points for that in the combat, but the main character doesn't really level a lot. And part of that, I think, is just kind of the tabletop experience that the author's trying to translate into a story. And then a lot of tabletop games, you're not going to be leveling up like 4 or 5 or 6 times in a single session. At the end of a session, you might level up once. And that's kind of the trends of the experience that's coming through in this story. But at the same time, a lot of readers do expect more than just a one level game per, 300 pages of story. And there's an in-game story, contextualization that explains why the main character's not getting levels. But that it's something to just kind of be aware of. Story-wise, it's a slice of life story. The main character is in an RPG role on behalf of Goddess. After accidentally summoning her, he finds allies, goes on quests, kills monsters, gets involved in a few plots. And some of the adventures are fun. Others are a little more intriguey. Others are just like, meh. Again, it felt like a dungeon master who was running a very casual campaign where there's just no real plot line. Characters are just going on adventures and they have some goals and they do stuff. And it's just kind of a decent story. I've read better tabletop experiences. And I've read, worse. This is just kind of in the middle. I was like, oh, this is okay if you don't have anything else to read. Overall, again, kind of just an okay story. I personally would have liked to have seen because this is something of vacation in the story. You'll see a lot of skill checks. You'll see a lot of DC checks of like, you pass this particular charisma check or an intimidation check or a trap check, whatever the case is. I personally would have loved to have seen the numbers. That's one of the things I like about tabletop RPG experiences, that I get to see the actual rolls. And if there's a critical failure or critical success, something weird and amazing happens that might alter the very course of the story. And it didn't really feel like that was the case here. It felt like a lot of the story was just pre-planned out. And even though skill checks were failed or succeeded, it didn't really seem to alter the flow of the story in any particular big way. There were still like changes in this way. If the main character failed an intimidation check, he couldn't force another character to reveal some secret, or he might have to fight or something in some way. But they weren't real big failures or successes that change the course of the entire show, as can happen in some weird tabletop experiences. I also would have personally loved to see more actual level progression, because that's one of the things I like about these experiences in LitRPG, and that seeing the way the character chooses to roll his character and to progress, and the powers he chooses, and the way he becomes progressively more powerful because of those RPG progression aspects. And a lot of that was just kind of missing here. Again, not a bad little story, no technical issues at all. And while I thought it was an okay story and I ended up reading it, I don't think I'd read a second book. It was just kind of an okay thing for me. So for me, it gets a score of 7.2 out of 10. That's Gnosis, book number 1, The Paladin Quest, a LitRPG novel, with a score of 7.2 out of 10. And next up we have Skyclad, Fate's Anvil, book number 1, written by Scott Bowder. It is 811 pages, a massive story. It is $3.99. It is not available on Kindle Unlimited, so you're going to have to purchase this one, folks. Here's the author's description. Morgan McKinsey had a very bad day. First at work, then at home, and then her bathtub fell through a portal into another world, with her in it. Now she's stuck thousands of miles from any sort of civilization with nothing but the bathtub and a lace puffball scrubby. But she learned magic, so that's sort of nice. Now, if only she could find some clothes. So there you go. This is a transportation RPG fantasy world story. The main character, Morgan, arrives naked, holding only her loofah. She accidentally kills a series of monsters in her fall and not only gains several levels, but a series of achievements and bonuses for doing so while naked and unarmed. While most of the story follows the heroine as she figures out the rules of this RPG world, how best to survive, magical experimentation, fighting monsters, there's also quite a number of interludes in the story that develop some of the larger world building aspects of the story and set up other world walkers, which she's or anyone from Marvel who's into this, or what it's called. Some readers are actually bothered by the sheer number of interludes. And they gave this like a negative score because of it. But for me, while I didn't find them as interesting as the main character storyline, by the end of the story, everything kind of ties together. So it makes a little more sense if you can make them. Otherwise, you can just ignore the interludes if you really want to. There are some nice, again, world building aspects that happen here, and some teasers and some developments from other world walkers that, again, everything really does tie together by the end of the novel. But that is kind of set up for other books in the series potentially. Game mechanic wise, fairly normal stuff. It's a semi-crunchy story. Lots of details and abilities, spells, skills, character sheets. Very good. I like the magical experimentation and exploration of class abilities on part of the main character. That's probably a good aspect for me. Overall, it's an entertaining story. One of my better reads for the week. I especially liked the, again, magical experimentation aspect of this, which is a good portion of the main character's kind of solo journey through the beginning and mid of the story. But I also like some of the characters, like especially Lulu, the Scrubby, the transformed Loofah, which is kind of a fun little twist on a transformed pet. So I thought that was kind of neat. I also liked, again, the unique character building aspects of like adding naked abilities. And again, the fact that there's a naked main character on the cover is just kind of reflection of kind of the theme of the character building class stuff here. It's not gratuitous nudity that's described. There's no sex or anything on the story. It is just kind of this neat little, kind of almost this custom class build. So that's kind of neat. So for me, gets a score of 7.8 out of 10. That's Skyclad, Fate's Anvil, book number 1, with a score of 7.8 out of 10. And next we have Game World, a LitRPG GameLit adventure written by Ivan Turgenev. It is 46 pages, 99 cents, available on Kindle Limited. And here's the author description. This is the most interesting LitRPG GameLit story you'll ever read. Which is a total lie, by the way. Blood, betrayal of players, levels, artificts, death, and psychology. Detective Malone enters the game world because his friend Diego has been murdered. Now it's human against machines, against artificial intelligence. And now you've been given access to, can any player win? Can you win? There's about 3 paragraphs of just like disclaimers that don't really apply to the story, I'll be honest. The review is really simple. This is a mess of a story. It's 46 pages, and 99 cents, which is overpriced for what you're actually getting, and it's on Kindle Limited, and I regretted reading it immediately. There's not a story here. There really isn't. There's like blocks of text that looks like code notes or chat room transcriptions, but even a lot of that is just kind of fluff. It's like stuff that doesn't mean anything. And there are some throw-in stats and skill increases in here, but they don't really have a reference point, and they don't really mean anything to the story. And even as like most of the text story kind of feels like it just exists. I regretted reading this and picking this up even as a Kindle Limited. So please do yourself a favor. Please skip this. Gets a score of 4 out of 10 for me. That's Game World, a LitRPG GameLit adventure with a score of 4 out of 10. I actively dislike this one. And next we have Ian's Picks of the Week. This is our segment where contributor Ian Mitchell, a longtime member of the LitRPG community, is happy to share his reviews with us. The stuff he's read in the last couple of weeks, sends them in the podcast, and we share them with you folks because I trust his opinion, I trust his views, but he also reads different things to me. So I'm always happy to get more broad, diverse range of things that I might not personally read or pick up, whether it's because of a limited amount of time or just lack of interest in a particular series. But Ian is here to help us out. And this week he's reviewing... We have his reviews rather for Irrelevant Jack. My practice mentor actually read the first book in the series. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I just couldn't read book 2 or 3. But this is Ian's review for book number 3 of Irrelevant Jack. He's given it a score of 8.3 out of 10, which is good for Ian. He says, I like the tone in this one. Nice and upbeat. A combat tower to climb, townies to interact with. It had some smart fights and some interesting dungeon crawling. He hasn't saved the world yet, but Jack's working on it. Fun, clean, light, and quick. It was like good comfort food for my mind. So, hey, that's high praise. So there you go. And his other review for this week is going to be for No Mistakes, World of the Change, book number 1 by Vasily Mihenko. I actually like book number 1 immensely. Book number 2 already has a February release date, so that's a quick turnaround. This is a Russian translation novel, though. Ian gives it an 8.2 out of 10, and he says, so many different games come to mind reading this. Fallout, Half-Life 2, even Pokemon Snap. And it is absolutely a mix of like apocalypse survival horror, but also use of a cell phone as like the RPG tool. He also continues, the action and intensity keep up all the way through. When one mission is done, there's another needing immediate attention. I look forward to the next one for even bigger explosions. Great start for a series, a lot of action, not much interaction, very much like playing a solo game. And again, Ian gives this a score of 8.2 out of 10. I absolutely agree with all the notes that Ian says. It's super actiony, super brutal at times, and dark. So just, again, post-apocalyptic RPG real life story. So just, it's a thing, and book 2 is already scheduled for a February release, so you don't want to have long to wait there. And that's it for Ian's picks of the week. Okay, folks, that is it for the show. We're finished. We are done. Finito. All completed. Thanks for listening, for watching. Remember that if you want to help follow us on Facebook and help increase our reach and our numbers, and find out all our latest weekly reviews that we do for LitRPG, whether it's audiobook podcast or LitRPG ebooks. You can follow us on Facebook at the LitRPG Podcast Facebook page, or on Twitter, or on YouTube. Patreon, our webpage. We have all kinds of places for you to find our stuff, our back catalog, all the literally hundreds, almost 1,000 reviews that we've done as a community. Or the podcast rather. They're all there for you to enjoy. Links in the show notes for everybody. And of course, we have links for a bunch of other great Facebook groups where LitRPG authors and readers connect and combine and talk and read and goof around. So we have a very nice community here. Remember, you can also find all the ways to support the podcast and help keep us ad-free and free for everybody at litrpgpodcast.com/support. But until we can hang out again, ladies and gentlemen, so I thank you again for taking the time to listen to me talk about this genre that I've fallen in love with such a long time ago, and I'm just still going at it every single day, even reading, writing, and reviewing all these different things. So until we can hang out again, folks, remember to go read some LitRPG. Goodbye, everybody.